We'll call to order the regularly scheduled Board of Supervisors meeting for Tuesday, May 21st, 2019. We received word that our pastor cannot make it down from Fall River today, so we'll have a moment of silence instead, and then after that, Supervisor Committee will lead us in the pledge. If you join us, please. Supervisor?
Good morning, everyone. As we approach Memorial Day, let's take a moment to remember those men and women who sacrificed everything so that we could do what we're doing today in this type of society. Join me in the pledge.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you, Supervisor. There are several opportunities for the public to speak during our meetings. There's on any regular agendized item. There's during the public comment open time, and that's also the time to speak on any consent calendar item. We ask that you complete a speaker request form, which are in the back, and give them to one of the clerks. Each person is allowed 3 minutes to speak, and we ask that you keep the information pertinent to our subject matter jurisdiction of this board. Our first item today is a proclamation, which I've asked Supervisor Morgan to present.
Yes, that's all right.
Yeah, just which one is going to do it?
That's right. You changed my name. I know who I am. Okay, Community Action Month, May 2019. Whereas Community Action connects individuals and families to approaches that helps them succeed and promote community-wide solutions to challenges throughout our cities, suburbs, and rural areas. And Community Action builds and promotes economic stability as an essential aspect of enabling and enhancing stronger communities, which in turn promotes self-sufficient, enduring, that all Americans are able to live in dignity. And Community Action nationwide connects millions of children and families to greater opportunity, transforming their lives and making our communities and our nation stronger. And Shasta County Community Action Agency administers and provides local community-based programs and services to serve local low-income and vulnerable residents and meet self-sufficiency needs in the county. And whereas Shasta County Community Action Agency served over 500 families and individuals with short-term rental assistance, rental security deposits, utility assistance, and housing rehabilitation loans, administered a homeless management information system for local agencies to track homelessness services, to effectively provide housing services, and partnered with several local, regional, and state agencies to increase services at the local level to support low-income residents to reach self-sufficiency. Now, therefore, be it resolved that the Board of Supervisors of the County of Shasta do hereby proclaim the month of May 2019 as Community Action Month in Shasta County, and declares the support of the County of Shasta for the Shasta County Community Action Agency. Signed, Leonard Modi, Chairman, May 21st, 2019. Mr. Chairman, I motion to approve this proclamation.
We have a motion and a second. All in favor, please say aye.
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 Ms. Birch?
Ms. Laura Birch. My pleasure to present you with this proclamation. You do such good work in providing rental assistance and housing to our low-income people, and I appreciate that, and I'm sure that they do too.
Thank you.
You're welcome. Please stay.
Yeah, thanks. I have a little presentation to show you.
Okay.
Good morning, Chairman Modi and members of the board. I'm
morning.
Laura Birch. I'm the Housing and Community Action Agency Director. The Community Action Agency was founded in 1973 and incorporated in Shasta County under the Equal Opportunity Act. It's a non-for-profit community action agency serving the county of Shasta and the cities of Anderson, Redding, and Shasta Lake. We are governed by a tripartite board with public officials. Supervisor Clemente is on our Community Action Agency board. We also have a private sector, and we have low-income representatives who sit on our board. What we do, we provide leadership and partnership. We provide food assistance and shelter programs through the Emergency Food and Shelter Program. We are responsible for the census marketing and outreach for Shasta County, and we are the lead agency for the Homeless Continuum of Care and the Homeless Management Information System. The programs that the Community Action Agency operates are the short-term rental assistance, which is called Tenant-Based Rental Assistance, TBRA. We provide housing rehabilitation loans, down payment assistance, rental assistance, and deposit assistance. Our main funding is the Community Services Block Grant, otherwise known as CSBG. We leverage those funds, and this year you can see the long list. I won't go through that of all the funds that we do leverage. With CSBG, we provide for operational costs, including support and administration, in order to receive the other funds and operate the other programs. So for every dollar that the CSBG provides us, we are able to leverage $16.55 in additional funding. These, like I said, these are the programs that we operate. We also have a loan portfolio of $9.7 million, or 266 loans. The short-term rental assistance provides 12 months of rental assistance for eligible households. And housing rehabilitation provided this last year $105,000 to low-income homeowners. For the Emergency Food and Shelter Program, we provided $97,107 to local food banks. So we served over 57,000 meals that were provided by 8 agencies. And we provided 1,280 shelter nights through One Safe Place. We manage the homeless, what is this? Oh, sorry. So we have contracts from outside agencies for our HMIS. We cover a 10-county region. For our continuum of care, we cover a 7-county region. So our 7-county continuum of care is Shasta, Lassen, Del Norte, Plumas, Sierra, Siskiyou, and Modoc. It's important to note we're managing a system and a consortium that covers a 23,000 square mile area, or 14% of California. And the funding that we receive through the continuum of care is the KESH grant, the HEAP funding, HUD funding, outside contracts for a total of $3.6 million. During the Carr fire, we made a request to HCD for additional support and assistance, and they provided us an additional grant of $40,000 for disaster victims that provided gasoline, groceries, and meals to those affected by the Carr fire. We run this program with this wonderful staff, one of which our newest member is here, Tricia Boss, and Tori Cardellino is our program manager. We have Denise Kikamundi, who's our community organizer. She's responsible for the census. And Medea Henderson is our HMIS representative. And Wendy Taylor does our affordable housing program. We have a website for our Community Action Agency program. It's the top one. And then we also have our Continuum of Care website on the bottom, or you can contact us directly if you have any questions. Thank you. Good.
Any questions for Ms. Birch? I have one. When people will see this and see that we're managing some of the resources for the other counties, I think it's important to tell them that it's not just Shasta County money going to those counties. So if you would talk about that
Yes,
just for a
so
second.
funding that comes through the COC, such as the HEAP grant or CASH grants, what we do is we receive the funding through an agreement with the state, and we have to send out within our 7-county region what's called a NOFA, a Notice of Funding Availability, to allow the other counties to receive funding through our continuum of care. And we have a methodology through our board governance that allows them to receive a maximum within each county because funding is limited. So, for instance, with the HEAP funding, we put out a NOFA during the month of November, and each county within the 7-county region was allowed to apply for that funding, but it was based on their participation in the point-in-time count, their homeless count within their county, and also that they provide funding, administrative funding for the operation of the continuum of care. If they've met all those criteria, they're eligible to receive funding through the continuum of care.
And it's state money?
It is state money.
State money, it's earmarked for the counties and divvied up in the way you discussed. But so many people understand it's not, money within our coffers. It's
Oh, no. This is state funding, and it's very specialized funding. Each grant that comes through or allocation that comes through has a very specific purpose. Generally, through the COC, it's going to be addressing issues related to homelessness or people who are at risk of homelessness to help them have stable housing.
Supervisor Clementi.
Yeah, I just want to take this opportunity to thank you. I know how aggressive you and your staff are in getting funds, and I'm a big fan of taking as much money from the state as we possibly can. And the fact that for every dollar that comes in a grant, you leverage $16.55 is really outstanding. And a lot of it's done behind the scenes, so most people don't appreciate just how aggressive you are, your organization is, and what you do for the community. So thank you.
Thank you.
Mr. Lees.
Yeah, real quick. I just wanted to say, go back 2 or 3 years, and the continuum of care created a lot of discussion and communication and conversation throughout the community. Now the credibility, thanks to Ms. Birch and her team, has just significantly increased, and they've done so well, in fact, that we've been asked to take on these other counties, these 7 other counties. That's not by chance, and that's not because no one else would do it. It's because of the reputation that Shasta County has and their leadership team as far as making sure that they have a good comprehensive program that is doing what it is intended to do. And so really congratulations go to this team, because as you know, you have not heard a lot of concerns about continuum of care and how it's going recently, and that's due to their efforts. So,
Thank you, Mr. Lees. Supervisor Rickert.
Yes, thank you, Chairman Modi. And I also agree. I think you're doing a great job, and we really are fortunate to have you as head of housing for Shasta County. I had a quick question. Your vacancy rate you had listed as 3.8%. That seems, with all the with the camp and car fires, it seems a little on the high side. And then I have another part to my question. If you can explain why that is at 3.8%, and if you have seen rents increase since the fires, and if so, at what percentage rate?
Okay. So the 3.8% is data that was post-car fire.
Okay.
They hadn't updated the data at that point, even though it came out, I think, after that time. We're looking at, and I've heard that it's more of a 1%.
Okay.
Yeah, it's more of a 1%. And yes, rents have increased. By example, I know specifically of a unit that unfurnished, that's a 3-bedroom, 2.5 bath, was rented, was leased for a 1-year agreement for $2,600 a month versus the $1,600 that a furnished unit of identical size and room and bathroom was receiving.
Okay. That's what I was afraid of.
Yeah. Yeah, it has gone up.
Yeah, thank you.
Supervisor Baugh.
Thanks, Chair Modi. I'll add my admiration as well to the fine work of you and your staff. Much appreciated. You mentioned some income levels. A couple questions. Does that assume the $61,000 figure for family of 4? Does that assume 2 income families? And is that Shasta County, or is that region-wide?
It's within our area that we provide loans. We, like home loans and CDBG loans, have a very specific amount that a person can receive, and whether that's two persons or one person receiving that, it's a composition of the family.
Just the average period. Thank you.
Yes.
Supervisor Morgan.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Ms. Birch, great presentation. I think the program is going along great guns because you're low-key. You don't hear a lot about you. And in fact, today, probably more information has come out about what you do than has ever been put out before. And I think that's because of you and your staff and the great job that you're doing.
Thank you. I appreciate it.
You're welcome.
Thank you.
Thank you for the presentation, Ms. Birch.
Thank you.
Our next item is a proclamation, which I've asked Supervisor Rickert to present.
Thank you, Chairman Modi. It gives me great pleasure today to read this proclamation. Shasta County Board of Supervisors, Airport Day, June 2nd, 2019. Whereas the Eastern Shasta County Sheriff's Flying Posse is planning their 72nd annual Airport Day on June 2nd, 2019. And whereas Airport Day includes an annual breakfast, antique, vintage, and modern aircraft from all over Northern California, Southern Oregon, and Western Nevada, motorized paragliders and model planes, and information and demonstrations from various Shasta County organizations such as Search and Rescue, California Highway Patrol, Sheriff's Department, California Department of Forestry and Fire Protection, and military groups to provide static aircraft displays and flybys. And whereas the Eastern Shasta County Sheriff's Flying Posse provides valuable assistance for search and rescue operations and other activities at the request of the sheriff, now therefore be it resolved that the Board of Supervisors of the County of Shasta hereby proclaims June 2nd, 2019 as Airport Day in Shasta County and commends the Eastern Shasta County Sheriff's Flying Posse on their service to their community. Signed, Leonard Modi, May 21st, 2019. I move approval.
Second. It's been moved and seconded. All in favor, please say aye.
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 And I would like Eric McQueenie, and if Ross Jones, who came all the way from Fall River Valley, is here, I'd like to have Ross, can you come on up and receive this also? Thank you. So here's the proclamation, Ross. Thank you for coming. Airport Day is one of the highlights in the Valley every year, and I would like to invite everyone in Shasta County to come and join us. It's a great opportunity to come up and enjoy the beauty of the Intermountain area, and we certainly look forward to today's, June 2nd, the events on June 2nd, so I'll see you there. Great pancake breakfast, by the way. So I've seen Mr. Lee's even up there. He goes up. But anyway, we certainly hope everyone can attend. So thank you for coming. Would you like to say a few words?
Yes, I would. I'd like to address the entire board and say thank you for 72 years of support. We're bound and determined to carry out the mission the sheriff assigns us, and we will do that forever. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Jones.
Under-Sheriff McGreeny, would you like to say something?
And Under-Sheriff, I'd have you come forward because they need to get you on camera.
I'd also, Chairman Modi, members of the board, Eric McGreeny, Under-Sheriff, I'd also like to thank Ross Jones for the work that he's instrumental up there in organizing this and carrying on the Flying Posse. As was mentioned, Sunday, June 2nd will be the 72nd annual Airport Day up there. And it also marks the 72nd anniversary of our all-volunteer Eastern Flying Posse. I've had the opportunity to actually use them on a case where at a phone call, they picked me up at the airport and we flew out during an investigation that we were conducting at that time. So great, they aid us in searches, in looking for downed aircraft, missing persons, so they're a great resource as well. We'll have antique vintage aircraft, is that right?
I'm sorry?
Antique vintage aircraft up there?
We're hoping to have them there. Depends on the weather.
Okay.
Most of them are.
All right. And Highway Patrol, I know CAL FIRE will be participating, different branches of the military, and our air medical services will also be in attendance that day. So it's a good day, as mentioned, pancake breakfast, so please come on out. I unfortunately will have to miss it. I'll be at an Air Force base visiting my son, so I'll be there in spirit. So thank you all.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Jones, for coming all the way down here. We appreciate it. Thank you. You're welcome. That moves us to the public comment open time. We do have a couple requests to speak. The first is John Gable, followed by Nick Gardner.
Are we allowed to do PowerPoints? Or that's a... I don't have one today. I was just curious because I saw it.
You're allowed 3 minutes. So if you get it done in 3 minutes, you're good.
Okay. My name is John Gable, and I speak to you today representing Moose Recreational Camp in Montgomery Creek. We are very concerned with the plans presented by Avangrid Renewables to locate an industrial wind turbine farm surrounding our 146-acre neighborhood of 50 cabin residences. Our families have spent the past 90 years getting away from the city to enjoy the peace and quiet of Moose Camp. Moose Camp, as we know it now, will be destroyed if Avangrid is permitted by you, Shasta County, to locate 591-foot-tall windmills within 1,000 feet of our property line. Although many of our members are worried about Avangrid building roads adjacent to our fence in every direction, along with hundreds and hundreds of truck trips carrying concrete and turbine parts for years, while every major ridge over 35,000 acres is topped with windmills. Our primary concern is how close Avangrid wants to put the windmills to our property line. Windmills 1,000 feet away, viewed from Moose Camp, would be part of our immediate surroundings in the foreground and not just part of a distant landscape like Hatchet Ridge is today. This is an important distinction between Hatchet Ridge and Fountain Wind. Hatchet Ridge is miles away from any residence. This is not the case with Fountain Wind as planned by Avangrid. Windmills 1,000 feet from our property line will be noisy, create a shadow effect when the sun shines, and ruin our view of the nighttime sky with FAA-mandated lights that shine bright all night. You have the power to tell Avangrid Renewables that they will need to settle for perhaps 90 windmills instead of 100, and that all Shasta County residents, not just those surrounded by Fountain Wind, will not have to worry about windmills in their backyards because you have decided to create thoughtful setback rules for industrial wind turbines, just like governments all over America have done. We propose that you keep them at least a mile away from property lines. Finally, if you are having trouble visualizing the whole wind turbine setback issue, I suggest the entire board take a field trip up to Hatchet Ridge, stand near to a windmill, and imagine them in your own backyard. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Gable. Our next speaker is Nick Gardner, followed by Monique Whalen.
Howdy.
Hi.
Hey, I'm not here to make enemies. I'm here to advise you the feel of the people and how we would like you to represent us. I want to bring to your attention last week's meeting. Danelle DeWaite got up here at 57 minutes into the meeting, if you want to look it up into the video, and he made the comment that San Antonio was planning on building a jail, and they channeled all their funds to housing the homeless and navigation centers, and they in fact didn't have to build a jail. They have 1,000 empty jail beds. Well, Friday, I called the San Antonio jail, and I explained to the guy why I was calling, and I posed a question. I said, do you have 1,000 empty jail beds? His reply was, no. I said, do you have 500 empty jail beds? He said, no. I said, thank you for calling. You know, I looked further, and San Antonio's homelessness has increased 17% from the last two time in counts. from 2,743 people to 3,066 people. So these navigation centers, these housing the homeless, is not helping. The self-help deal in Sacramento, it's not self-help, it's come on, we'll support you. It was quoted in the paper that Supervisor Moti and Rickert, this is a quote, a specific tax that identifies many of the jail operations or other public safety needs would be the way to go. Well, we are not going to vote for a general safety tax. I'm advocating for a 1-cent county-wide sales tax to build a new 500-bed jail to support that jail, support staff, and with maintenance and nothing else. I've talked to at least 100 people since our last meeting, and I've had 4 people tell me they would not vote for it. Everybody else said, yeah, that's a great idea. That's the only thing I'll vote for. I won't vote for any other tax. The homelessness in San Francisco is up 17%. It's up 43% in the county of Oakland. San Francisco, Alameda, Santa Clara is up by 25,000. What we're doing is not working from San Diego to Seattle. I am proposing separating the crime from the homeless. This way we can get a hold of the crime in Shasta County. This wouldn't affect any of the finances that are going towards the homeless. In fact, it would enhance it because you would have fewer people for the amount of resources we have. I am going to be on Carl Bott's show at 8 o'clock Thursday morning. That's 1460 a.m. That is 96.5 FM. I would advise you to listen to us. We're going to talk for an hour on this.
Mr. Gardner, your time is up, sir.
I'm also going to be on the show Sunday, June 2nd, from 10 till 12 a.m., and we're going to have kind of a round table. Dale Ball is going to be there.
Mr. Gardner, your time is up.
Is that your way of saying you're not interested in what I have to say?
I'm saying that your time is up.
Thank you.
Thank you. Monique Whalen, followed by Thomas Hildebrand.
It is. How are you?
I'm good. How are you?
Still got it going on.
Awesome. Awesome. Okay. Good morning, board.
Good
Hello,
morning.
fellow constituents. Good morning. So, okay, to talk about what today. God, I love that you came up here because I love to have debates. And what I wanted to come up here and say, or to start off with, is a problem shared is a problem that's been halved. And I think the Navigation Center, the Life Center, I'm not sure what to call it, but I think what Mr. Chief Johnson proposed with the Navigation Center and the Detention Center with that warm handoff hallway is extremely important. As reading in the newspaper yesterday, we are number 3 on a list of arrest rates out of 58 counties in this singular state. Number 3 highest. Of those arrests that are being done in our county, 3,428 arrests out of 100,000 people. So now we are a county of 190,000 people. Double it. So that is 6,672 arrests out of 190,000. That blows my mind. 20% of that is the fact that people don't show up for their appointments. There was an article where Justice Kennedy had wiped some man's all of his wrongs, wiped them off the table, and then a statement was made that it was in the best interest of this, this, and this. That's not the way things need to be done, but we've got to do something. We got to get the courts involved. We got to get probation involved. A lot of these people are post-arrest, parole, probation. They're left to struggle and falter in the wind. And, you know, we've got to realize, and because I like to think scholarly, responsibility is a huge thing. When that responsibility is so heavy and frustrating, it becomes overwhelming, then the shadow side of that is irresponsibility. It is my responsibility to know where I am in my life. It is my responsibility to change my life. So that means it's my responsibility to rise above everything that is trying to weigh me down so I can succeed. It has been proven that when people are around other successful people, they do so much better in life. And when you've got somebody walking through that warm handoff hallway communicating what the meaning of hope is, In 2008, I fell down a mental health chasm, and I could not see my way out. Every time somebody tried to throw me a rope, it was tangled. You know what hope is? Hope is that untangled rope that will pull me out of that deep, dark place that I call my mental chasm. So we need things to change. The other thing I wanted to make statement too is, when the head is sick, the whole body is sick. We all have a mental health, and it's up to you how you choose to wield it. So I'm going to sit back, relax, and listen. And we've got to do something different, because what's happening is not okay. We have a right to live free with our liberty, and we are being impeded upon. Please do something, please, so I can stop this.
Next speaker is Tom Hildebrand, followed by Bob Hoslinger.
Good morning, Tom Hildebrand. Good morning. Yeah, I'm against any type of navigating center. We've got, what, $19 million a year spent on mental health and homeless. How much more do we need? How much more does it take? Seems like the more free stuff we give, the more free stuff we have to offer. Well, free isn't free. Getting money from state is not free, Joe. Go to your gas pump and see how much extra taxes they're taking. And they're taking it from people who's actually served their life, paid taxes, and trying to buy a house. And now a lot of people are being forced out of their houses because everything's free. And this state stuff's not free. Actually, I think about 10 years ago, we used to talk about, there's people talking about, don't take grants because there's stuff tied to it. And I've heard you guys go, well, the state stipulates. Well, I feel we should be in charge of our own money. The state shouldn't stipulate crap. That's how I feel about it. I do think that we should have jails. Mr. Larry there, I've heard him say we have no money for administration. We have no jailers or none of this. But in the meantime, they'd go back behind closed doors, which I'm against, and give everybody raises. Now, we don't have any money for jailers. How can we have money for raises? But anyway, let's go walking on the river and see how long you last. I was down there, and some guy came up and tried to hit me, but he hit the lamppost. But that's really pathetic that we have no jails. And also, I'd like to ask the board to show a little more respect, or a lot more respect, to our grand jury system. I've heard the grand jury come up and said we have this issue. And I heard a little kangaroo court here saying, oh, there's no problem. We got the fox from the hen house, and he gave the report. Well, we'd like to see some type of accountability when a grand jury says we have an issue. Let's get some. Also, one other deal is I like to ramble on. I don't plan this crap. But anyway, all these committees, you see the same names on committees. You're getting the same votes. So I'd like to see some new blood on some of these committees, and maybe have a different outlook about what's going on, because people aren't happy with what's going on. We have no newspapers. We have no television report locally that does anything basically up front. That's why the majority of people quit buying the paper. It's USA Today around America, yes, but we have Reading here. And that would be if I was on the board, that would be where I would direct everything. We need some jails. We need accountability. And let's get back to that grand jury report, and let's have somebody go over and look at it. And Joe, nothing's free. All this free money. Thanks.
Bob Hoslinger.
Good morning, Board. Thank you for the opportunity to talk to you this morning. No one wants to see a new sales tax of any kind. I think we all agree with that. Crime in Shasta County currently is at an unacceptable level. The revolving door has got to close, and there has to be accountability for criminal activity. With that said, I would consider supporting the 1 cent sales tax, provided it's specifically for the new jail facility itself and for the O&M expenses increasing. The issue there is we do not want that money to be, the sales tax increase money, to be used in any other county expenditures or to offset county expenditures. It's for the new jail and the operation and maintenance of the new jail only, if we were to approve that. If it's dedicated for the jail, once the jail is built, another thing that would be very helpful is the actual note or the expense of the facility itself would be retired by the 1 cent sales tax, At the end of that, when it's retired, at that point, the O&M expenses would be identified, and I would expect the law to read that the sales tax resulting in the overage would be accounted for by reducing the sales tax back down. That's where I'm really with that. I don't like sales tax. I have a CCW for the reason is the homeless or the drug addicts that are aggressive in the streets of Shasta County, and it's got to stop. We have to have safety in our own communities, and I implore you to please help us get that done. Thank you.
Thank you. All the requests I have for open time. I just would offer one clarification. One of the speakers indicated, quoting from the paper, and indicating that myself, and I'll speak for you, Supervisor Rickert, that we supported, I think it sounded like we supported a general sales tax. I don't think we spoke either for or against a specific or general tax, just we talked about a sales tax specifically as an issue, not as a position as to where we were. So I think we'll just leave it at that. Next item is the consent calendar. The following consent calendar items are expected to be routine and non-controversial. They may be acted upon by the board at one time without discussion. Any board member or staff member may request that an item be removed from the consent calendar for discussion and consideration. I do not have any advance requests to remove any items. Pleasure of the board.
Motion to approve.
Second.
Been moved and seconded. Any other discussion? All those in favor, please say aye.
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 Motion carries. Moving on to R3, a legislative update and supervisors' reports. Mr. Lees.
Nothing to report.
Thank you. Supervisor Chimenti.
If you don't mind, Chair, I'd like to take this minute just to address something from last week. I think a lot of misinformation got out there in regards to what Mr. Eward had done and what his direction was. This very board in March, after seeing Mr. Eward's presentation, and I was the one that personally requested, can you show me what you can do with the money you have? And last week he showed us what he could do with the money he had, which was in direct response to what I had requested. So Mr. Eward was not going rogue on us. Communication could have been better, but I think that's pretty typical in organizations, and we're certainly working on that. The recommendation that he made for the $700,000 to go to medical respite was a fantastic idea. I wasn't necessarily crazy about the second part with the mini navigation centers, but still, when you're brainstorming and you're looking for solutions, that's kind of what you need to do. I know the COC did not move forward with that, but most critical to me is that all that money will stay in Shasta County. So I want to make sure that's clear because I think there was a lot of misinformation that went out about that. And I also want to make it clear that Mr. Eward is a big supporter of the transitional rehabilitation facility. I certainly am a big supporter of that. I want to move forward with that. One of the concerns that law enforcement had was if we had a navigation center without accountability, there was a challenge. Mr. Eward has pushed that off the agenda, at least for now, so I think our focus needs to be on the transitional rehabilitation facility so we can address the misdemeanor problem. So thank you, Chair.
You're welcome. Supervisor Rickert.
Thank you, Chairman Modi. So last week I attended a focus group, a meeting that I was invited to at the Shasta Regional Community Foundation, a post-car fire meeting, going over kind of how funding came in and how it was disseminated. I attended a meeting at the DA's office for the place in the TRF, which Supervisor Committee more or less gave a mini update on that, so we're working forward on that. We will be meeting again on Friday, and I'm looking forward to that meeting. I attended the Exchange Club Firefighter and EMT of the Year Awards. Supervisor Morgan and I had a great time at that event, and it was really heartwarming to see so many firefighters and EMTs honored. We also were able to honor Jeremy Stokes' daughter. She received a certificate in his memory. Then we immediately went to the Step Up graduation at Shasta College, and if there's ever a program that is working in Shasta County, it's the Step Up program, and it has to do with restorative justice and people getting certificates, graduating with their AA degree, and moving on with their life, and hopefully we wish them well, and we think that that program, I'm just amazed how it has grown from their first graduation to where they are today. We had Chef Jeff, the celebrity chef, was there as the keynote speaker. He was absolutely amazing. He was just very, very inspirational. I wished everybody could have been there, right, Steve? It was great. Attended the Asphalt Cowboy Pancake Breakfast. Then I also attended immediately thereafter the Shasta Health Assessment Reassessment Collaborative. No, wait, Realignment. There's too many acronyms out there. But the Shark meeting at Mercy Hospital, and that was a very good group. I really enjoyed reconnecting with a lot of people I've served on previous committees on. And then last but not least, I ventured over into Supervisor Baugh's district and did our Parkville Cemetery cleanup. That was established in 1863, and it's always a great time. Every year we go out and clean up the cemetery. We have just a simple approach to it all, no irrigation water or anything. We just fight squirrels all year, that's all.
My favorite road in Shasta County.
I know.
It's beautiful.
It's beautiful. So, but thank you.
Thank you, Supervisor Rickert. Supervisor Morgan.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Attended the Rodeo Rain Fest at the rodeo grounds and bull riding event Wednesday night. Had a great time, great seats. But Pam and I got soaked to the skin. Had a great time, though, and saw one round of bull riding before we pulled the plug. Good food, too. Thursday, attended the Exchange Club 15th Annual Firefighter and EMT Awards. Supervisor Rickert and I passed out certificates of recognition to 11 Firefighters of the Year and certificates of recognition to 2 EMT Responders of the Year. It's great to see so many firefighters in one room from around the county. And especially those who are being recognized by their departments as being a Firefighter of the Year for what they do. And it's really, truly amazing at these gentlemen and ladies. Later that afternoon, attended step-up graduation at Shasta College. The class of 2019 with 36 graduates was one of the largest to date. Keynote speaker was Chef Jeff Henderson with a fiery speech about how he changed his life and attitude while in prison and about life after where he got out of prison. Supervisor Rickert and I had a great time and good listening and a lot of good information. Next up to Lakehead for a dinner meeting at the Lions Club, and I gave a short presentation on short-time rentals. Thanks to Mr. Paul Hellman to give me the information that I needed. And he also handed out a pamphlet on safety in the home written by Anderson Police Department and answered questions about raising Shasta Dam. Thanks, Chief Johnson, for the booklets. Good questions, good crowd. Friday down to Roaring Gulch for pancake breakfast put on by the Asphalt Cowboys. Amazing the number of folks attending and the ease in getting breakfast. It's surprising the amount of pancakes, sausages, coffee, you name it, and the crowds down there and the ease of getting your food early in the morning. It's what an organization that the Asphalt Cowboys have out there. What else did I do? Oh, Friday night attended a benefit dinner to support the CareNet Pregnancy Center. All-you-could-eat spaghetti was the main course and hosted by the Knights of Columbus and the Catholic Daughters. Missed the soft opening of the Veterans Museum in Anderson due to being in Vacaville, but understand the opening was a roaring success. Can't wait to visit the museum. And that's all I have, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, Mr. Morgan. Supervisor Baugh.
Thank you, Chair Modi. Like a couple fellow board members have stated, I too remain supportive of the Transitional Rehabilitation Center, even though we have changed direction. I would also make this suggestion. While we are focusing, and I know we need to focus on that, and that is the direction given by the board, we need to also continue the discussion for a navigation center or some similar service, and here's why. With the decisions that have been made recently through the COC, they also had discussion kind of fine-tuning the process. And I believe in the future we're going to see the effort to see ready projects or shelf-ready projects. So if we don't discuss this in advance and we wait for the next round of HEAP funding, Shasta County in itself will not be able to solve some of the ongoing problems and be a player in that field. we're going to need to have those discussions in advance in preparation for that next round of funding. I'm just tossing that out as something I know that, Chairman Modi, you have the ability to put items on our agenda and bring them forward. I think it would be a worthy discussion to find out what direction we want to go in, since we have changed directions here recently. Along with Supervisor Rickert, I attended a presentation from a representative of the Shingletown Council. They are proposing a pilot program for the Shingletown community, 19 miles long, that would alert the community to fire challenges and be tied in, hopefully, with a county-wide system of alerts. Here's the thing. They're not looking for county money. They want to form a pilot program. They are looking for county support in terms of perhaps receiving a presentation here, and I'd like to ask the board if we'd be willing to receive that presentation, because I think it's informational, and then we could decide whether or not we would send a letter of support. They made it really clear they're not looking for our money because it's a big expense, but they've been very successful in going after additional funds, and if they feel like if they have local and state, and they also have petitioned our congressman for support, then they might indeed get into one of the state avenues of resources. Would the board be interested in seeing more information on that? And I would emphasize a short presentation, because their original presentation was much longer than our 8-minute window. So I would be willing to specify that limited presentation.
And I just want to add on to that. I do think it would be worth our time just to have a short presentation. I do.
I agree. Okay. Very good. So we'll pass on the contact information for you, Mr. Lees, then. Thank you for that. The NorCal Veterans Museum and Historical Center in Anderson, it's the old and original Bank of America building in downtown Anderson, was amazing. It was full of respect for our veterans, and it had tremendous amount of historical information within it, and they are in the process of completing the library. This will serve as headquarters for the group, and they are still proceeding with their plans for a multi-million-dollar campus on Rhonda Road in Anderson. So I believe immediately outside of the city limits, so it's a county property. I believe that if anybody can do it, it will be our veterans in Shasta County. So my hat's off to Chief Burrows and the rest of the folks who have put in hours and hours and hours rehabbing that building for the Veterans Museum. I also took a tour of the sheriff's facility in the basement of our old Shasta General Hospital. We had some discussion about that during the conversation about the Navigation Center, and I wanted to see for myself the building, the state of repair or disrepair, what it looked like and what the possibilities might be. I wanted to thank the sheriff and his staff for allowing the tour, and I also want to thank Mr. Minturn and his staff for providing some valuable input on that. It was worth taking the time to check it out. And then last item, attended last night the Bureau of Indian Affairs presentation on the casino and the hearing and the public input. So it was at the Vets Hall, folks, and not only were all the chairs full, but I would just guess easily another 100 people lining the walls. It was very much a meeting of interest, and I would say, frankly, most of the folks that spoke were in favor until there was one large petition presented representing 5,000 petitions in opposition. So I think it'll be a very interesting community discussion as the process moves forward. That concludes my report. Thank you.
Thank you, Supervisor Baugh. I'll just follow up on the one comment about the Navigation Center and any kind of security facility that we build. I think it was very clear from this board in unity that we were very interested in pursuing both avenues. I don't know if that's changed in any manner. I think the only issue that's changed a little bit is, and always has been the key issue, and that's the funding of for the different projects and how that will be accomplished and what that will allow us to do. But I think that the board is pretty solid that we've not given up on any of parts of the ideas. You received any direction different, Mr. Lees? Yeah, so I think we're still moving forward at that, and we'll continue to have those discussions.
Perfect.
As you suggested. I just think it's a matter of determining what we can afford in the end. I'll just quickly update. I'm be attending the Sacramento River Forum meeting tomorrow, and then I have a community fire meeting in down on Lower Gas Point Road coming up on this Thursday, which CAL FIRE will be there along with the Sheriff's Office to discuss fire preparedness. I had a CSAC Finance Corp teleconference meeting last week, and then finally today there's a service for John Kleckner. John was one of our military veterans in this area who worked very hard to enhance and improve the Veterans Cemetery and served on a number of committees out there. He passed away recently after a short illness, and his services today, I'll be attending that. That's all the reports I have. We are ready to move on to our rest of our regular calendar. R4. R4 is adopt a memorandum of understanding with the Sheriff's Administrative Association. Ms. Davis.
Good morning, Chairman, members of the board. Angela Davis, Director of Support Services. Before you today is a memorandum of understanding by and between the County of Shasta and the Sheriff's Administrative Association for a term of 3 years beginning July 1st of 2019. This MOU includes 3 increases. The first salary increase is effective July 7th of 2019 in the amount of 4%. The second increase is effective July 5th of 2020 in the amount of 3%. And lastly, effective July 4th of 2021 in the amount of 4%. I'd like to thank the SAA bargaining team as well as the CEO, Larry Lees, and of course the Board of Supervisors for reaching this agreement expeditiously. So if you have any questions, I'll be more than happy to answer them.
Any questions for Ms. Davis? Pleasure of the board.
Move rule.
Second.
It's been moved and second. Any other discussion?
I just want to comment that there is no general fund impact to this.
Correct. The monies that fund the salary increases is the public safety fund, and so depending upon the public safety fund, correct. At
Okay.
this time, there is.
I just wanted to have that on the record. Thank you.
Thank you, Supervisor. And I would just add one other comment. I know that there's concerns about giving pay raises to people, but we need to remind people that Shasta County employees tend to be the lower paid employees throughout a number of the similar-sized counties. In fact, the issue about hiring more jail deputies and stuff, the problem is they don't stay there because they don't get paid enough money, so they go other places. So we have to be competitive in the salary market to try to attract more deputies and jailers, and that's a common problem I know the sheriff has had for a number of years. So any other discussion? We have a motion and a second. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. Thank you, Ms. Davis.
Thank you. I believe. Thank you.
Our next item, R5, is a presentation on potential energy retrofit opportunities. Mr. Minturn.
Good morning, Chairman Modi, members of the board, Pat Minturn, Public Works Director. The county maintains about 1 million square feet of buildings with mechanical apparatus for heating and cooling. And we spend about $2 million a year on energy to heat and cool and operate that equipment. And it's out of sight, out of mind until something goes wrong. But there's technological advances that are constantly going on that make that equipment obsolete. It still does its job, but the new equipment is more reliable and it uses less energy. And so it's possible to replace that older equipment with new equipment periodically and to pay for the upgrades with the energy savings. With the caveat that you have to be careful and kind of smart about how you look at it and you figure out what you replace and what you replace it with. So 20 years ago, the county did an energy retrofit, and we spent about $3 million and replaced a lot of electrical and mechanical equipment. And by and large, that equipment's still there. But a lot of that equipment is now somewhat obsolete by modern standards. For instance, we replaced a lot of T12 lighting with T8 fluorescent lighting, the narrower bulbs, but nowadays LED lighting has come online. And even though the old bulbs still work, the new stuff uses a fraction of the energy. 10 years ago, we did a more limited retrofit with just the jail chillers and enough other things to make it pencil out. And again, those chillers are still operating. The old chillers were over 30 years old when we replaced them. And we were due for a failure, and we avoided a failure that way. And that's another part of it is the reliability. New equipment, more reliable, more efficient, quieter, better all around. So staff has taken a look and come up with some tentative ideas, but we're all civil engineers, or we're maintenance people. So ENGIE is an energy services company. And out of the goodness of their heart, with no money up front and no commitments, they've come and they're mechanical engineers and they've studied our systems. And our only expense has been to open doors, take them up on the roofs, show them the equipment. And they have some tentative ideas that they've come up with, but I wanted to run these by this board because there are some things that involve use for solar panels in parking lots, in fields, on roofs, and electrical and mechanical upgrades. And so I thought it would be useful to have this board have a look at this ideas up front and give us some ideas about how it might be improved, might be refined, any ideas you might have for use of these facilities that should be taken into account before we go any farther. And so with us today are three mechanical engineers from ENGIE, Mr. Ashu Jain, Ms. Heather Benner, and Mr. Adam Donovan. And so I'd like for them to go through the presentation, if the board can take a few minutes here, and then receive input.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Minton. Good morning, Mr. Chairman, members of the board, staff. Ashu Jain with ENGIE Services. I'd like to take a few minutes of your time.
Just signal to me when you want to switch.
Okay, got it. Thank you. I'd like you to take you through the brief scope of work that we've developed until now. I think Mr. Minton already introduced the rest of my team here. Heather Benner is our lead project manager, and Adam Donovan is our project manager who's been working with me on this project. So we've been working with Mr. Minton and his staff for the last few months in developing the scope, and we wanted, as Mr. Minton mentioned, we want to see, run that scope by you and see what you think about it. Before I go into that scope of work, I would like the board's indulgence for very briefly for me to talk about who we are. So if you can go to the next, I think another slide after that. Thank you. So ENGIE Services US is a wholly owned subsidiary of ENGIE, and ENGIE is the largest utility in Europe, the largest energy services company in the world. We have 150,000 employees, $80 billion in revenue. And the only reason I point that out is that our projects are multi-million-dollar projects, and we guarantee savings for 20 years. And it is very important for our customers to realize that we have the financial wherewithal that we'll be around for 20 years to honor the guarantees that we put forward. ENGIE Services US has been in business in the U.S. for 45 years. We're the largest energy services company in the state. We have 180 employees. We're headquartered in Oakland, and we have 8 offices, the closest one being in California, the closest one being in Sacramento. We're not a solar company, even though we've done a fair amount of solar. We've done over 250 megawatts of solar, and we only work, 99% of our work is for public entities. Next slide. So one of our specialty over time has been that we've done a tremendous amount of work for California counties. In the back of the presentation is a description of each one of these projects. But needless to say, we have an extensive amount of experience in putting similar projects together for other counties. And the only thing I like to highlight here is that we've done several phases of work for different counties, which means that we do good work and we get invited back. Next slide, please. So we put a preliminary scope of work together for your review. And what the scope of work includes is solar at every building and facility where it made economical sense. Shasta County Jail is your largest consumer of electricity. Unfortunately, there is no place at Shasta County Jail to install solar panels. So we could not do any solar there, but pretty much everywhere else, if it was feasible to do solar, we've included it. and that is something that I'm going to run through the solar scope of work with you. Mr. Minton mentioned that the progress in the advances in LED lighting, and today LED lighting is definitely financially very attractive. It saves 50% in energy over what you have right now, and it's very long-lasting, 20 years without any replacements needed, and it is considered better quality lighting. So we will be looking at lighting at every facility you have if your board chooses to move forward. We're looking at HVAC replacements everywhere where it's past its life. So those are the buildings that we've chosen. And of course, this is very preliminary, and we'll come back with a more detailed scope of work down the road. We have some other minor scope of work. So these are the buildings that we have identified solar projects. We wanted to run through some of the layouts with you. Next slide, please. This is the county administration building. At the parking structure, we'll cover it with solar panels, and you can park underneath. That's the top floor of the parking structure. We'll have solar panels on the roof of the county administration building. Even in spite of putting all these panels, we are not able to avoid all the electricity consumption at the administration building. So we'll still have a bill left. Next, please. Please, if you have any questions about any of the layouts, please feel free to interrupt me. Public health and mental health building, this is a ground mount system. Ground mount systems have the benefit of producing around 15% more energy than a shade structure because of the angle of the solar panels, and they actually cost 10 to 15% less. So they're very attractive. So we try to do ground mount as much as we can. Cascade office building, ground mount project again. Placer office building, shade structure. District attorney, again a shade structure. Sheriff's office, parking canopy. And the way we size these buildings is either we are limited by the consumption at the site, or we are limited by space. So most of these we've been able to accommodate. We've been able to put enough solar to avoid all the entire electricity used, but we're not limited by space, except, as I mentioned, at the administration building, we are limited by space. Just want to clarify one thing. Even though I do say that we're going to avoid all the electricity use, you still will get a bill from REU or PG&E because the solar does not avoid what's called the demand charges. It only avoids the consumption charges. So I think you'll still have a bill of around 15-20% left. And we'll identify that in the next phase. This is the new juvenile hall. It's a ground mount system. Public defender, carport. And the coroner's office has both a roof-mounted system as well as a parking canopy. At the landfill, we worked with the landfill manager to come up with a location to do a ground mount system. I think that's the last one. I think the benefits already of this project have already been gone through by Mr. Minton. You're using the savings from the solar project and the lighting project to replace your HVAC equipment without affecting the general fund. And if HVAC, even though it's much more efficient now, does not pay for itself. So you're essentially using dollars saved from the solar project and the LED lighting project to comprehensively replace your HVAC equipment. And of course, I think that's we will be able to reduce in the buildings that we mentioned, you are spending around $1.35 million in electricity. And we should be roughly saving half of that ultimately with all these projects that we mentioned. And of course, if your board decides to move forward with this project, then we'll come back with finalized, financial numbers, savings, guaranteed maximum price.
So when you say saving half of that, do you mean a net savings or saving half of the bill?
Net savings. So if you're consuming 1.35, we think you'll save close to $700,000.
After satisfying the debt on the equipment?
No, sir. The debt of the equipment will be subtracted.
So the net savings?
Net savings, we did a feasibility study. I would say the net savings after replacing all the HVAC equipment, if I remember correctly, it'll be in the $100,000 to $150,000 range.
Thank you.
Thanks. Any other questions?
One quick one. And maybe Mr. Minturn can answer this. How long will it, basically, in simple terms, how long will it take to pay for itself? I mean, how many years out will it till we are at basically breaking even?
That's kind of in the next phase, but we're looking at a 20-year probably. If we keep the repayment period within 20 years, then the bondholders will be happy to take just the equipment as collateral, and we don't get into land issues. If we go beyond 20 years, they start to say, well, maybe the equipment won't be around in 25 years or 30 years, and so we'd have to burden the land. So my goal is to avoid any proposal that go beyond 20 years.
One advantage I will comment is that in Reading we have sunshine, and we're going to be able to utilize the solar panels. I mean, we have solar panels in Siskiyou County, and winter months we can't depend on them because you have snow or whatever. So that's one advantage I see, is that we really need to harvest the sunshine.
We don't have any solar panels that I can think of in any county facilities, and until 15, 20 years ago, it was kind of a gimmick, but it's gone way beyond that, and this is prime solar territory right here. We can, especially out in the PG&E areas where the fees are a little higher, but even within Reading REU service area, solar is a very attractive option here, especially if we can get ground mount.
Yeah, exactly.
Supervisor Morgan.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I've got about 2 or 3 questions. If the project goes through, what is the normal life of these panels that you're proposing to install?
Yes, sir. The panels are guaranteed for 25 years, and the life is typically considered to be 30 years. There are panels actually in existence which have been around for over 40 years. They were installed by SMUD back in the 60s or the 70s, and they were recently actually taken out because SMUD needed that space. But this technology has been around for a long time.
Okay. Second question, are these panels made in the United States or are they made overseas?
The panels will most probably be, we haven't selected the panels, but they will most probably be made overseas. There is really not a manufacturer of solar panels in the United States that's in existence anymore. There was a lawsuit where some companies sued and got duties put on the panels. Unfortunately, the companies that helped sue them, they're not even in existence right now. So there's really not a manufacturer of panels. So we buy panels from, mostly we're buying panels from LG, which is a South Korean company, the same company that makes TVs and washers and everything else.
Okay. Other question, I didn't hear anything about battery backups. I know the sun only shines so many hours a day, so
Correct.
If you're going to utilize the system, you need battery backups in certain areas.
That's a good question. So two-part answer to that. Your grid actually acts as a backup. In California, all utilities are required, even the municipal utility like Reading is required to do what's called net metering. What net metering does, anytime you produce more electricity, Reading Electric Utility will give you will compensate you for that. And anytime you're producing less than what you need in a building, you're paying for it. So it acts as a big battery for you. So you don't really, there's no advantage in having a battery with the solar system because they're compensating you for that. So the grid acts as a battery. We are the largest company that does battery storage in the country, actually. And we will evaluate battery storage more in the next phase, but initially it seems with the Reading Electric Utilities rates, it does not make sense to include battery storage.
Okay, and the last question is, in those areas where it's possible, would you have the solar panels motorized so that it follows the sun?
So we do that, and we've done that for many projects. And Those are meant for large ground mount systems. And, it's an option that we will consider for especially like the public, the mental health buildings where we had a 600 kilowatt system. I think that's at a size where we should look at single axis tracking, and we will evaluate it. Thank you.
Okay. Well, thank you for your comments, because every time I travel north, which is south, I should say, which is quite extensively, I see more and more companies that are going to solar panels, especially some of the hospitals. They're converting all their lots to solar panel overheads for their parking lots, and it's quite extensive. So anyway, thank you. I think it's a great idea.
Thank you.
Supervisor Baugh.
Thank you, Supervisor, or Chairman. Steve, great questions. Great questions. Thank you. I only have one left on my list after Steve got done with you there. Is the contract or the agreement with REU, is that they have a pre-established program, or is that negotiable? How does that work?
It is a pre-established program. It's net energy metering. You're allowed to net meter only up to 1 megawatt. Unfortunately, we're not exceeding that size anywhere, but it is a pre-established program. But it's entirely up to the board and staff if they want to negotiate something.
Is that different for county or for commercial operations? Because I hear and know of some people in homes that have had challenges with REU and have had limits set on what they can sell or what they can save in terms of, you use the battery example. Right. A little bit of savings accounts is then used when we're not producing.
Yes, so actually the investor-owned utilities, PG&E, Southern California Edison, and SDG&E have actually more flexibility in how you do solar. So for a lot of counties, we've done projects where we installed solar at one location and avoid electricity use at other locations. So PG&E is required to buy the electricity from wherever the county chooses to generate, and then avoid electricity use at locations like your jail where you cannot install solar panels. Unfortunately, municipal utilities are not required to offer that program, and they don't. So REU does not offer that program where you can install solar offsite.
Thank you.
Thanks.
If I might add, both county and NG staff have met with REU officials, and we've discussed these issues. And as Ashu said, the idea of generating in one end of town and then consuming at the other end of town through their system is off the table. They're not willing to do that. But if we can get in behind the meter, that, as I say, we tie in with each meter location. So, for instance, this building here, we're going to have solar that ties in on our side of the meter. As long as we do that, then they will give us credits, and they'll allow us to use, obviously, more at night and less during the day. And there is some demand charge that's associated with that. And so that's where the battery backup becomes useful, and that you avoid any sort of a peak that they can get you for on that last 15-20% of your bill. So these are refinements late in the project, though. And tentatively, talking with REU, it seems like it's viable. I understand the homeowners, there are some issues with, in some areas where there's too much solar on the system, and so on that basis, some municipalities aren't agreeing to go along with additional solar installation. Yeah. But we've talked to REU, and they seem to be okay with what we're proposing here.
Thank you.
Supervisor Clemente.
Just a very basic question. I assume, should we move forward with this, we'd be looking for local installers for these panels?
Yes, those details haven't been worked out yet, but our local contractors are very competitive, and we're going to be looking for the lowest cost. And remember, I send out the bid results every time we open bids, and it's always local contractors. It's very difficult for somebody to come in from the Bay Area and try to compete against a Shasta County contractor. So there would be multiple contractors that would be involved, and this is, on the grand scheme of things, not wildly complicated work. Foundations, installation of existing equipment. We've got our share of contractors in this area, and I would expect that they would be competitive.
Thank you. Before we go to you, Mr. Lee,
of course,
I'm going to go to our County Council.
Thank you. Chairman Modi, just to briefly articulate also, I believe the item that's here for discussion is basically to consider the idea of energy retrofit opportunities as a concept, and in moving forward with the matter, there is a number of legal issues that will need to be resolved, in particular in connection with findings that the board will have to be made. That's all down the road as far as making a determination as to who will actually be the contractor. But I think right now, as I understand it from Mr. Minturn's presentation, is the board interested in pursuing this idea as a general concept?
Thank you. Mr. Lees?
I just wanted to add also, when, we've been working on this for a couple years, something like this for a couple years, and, we're always trying to be creative and how to fund our, look for other resources to fund that which is important to us and that which we need, especially when it comes to maintenance. And as we look at the life of this building, we're, nearing on 15 years here, as well as the air conditioning units. We know we lost one here about a week or so ago, a big power unit that actually, took the power out of the entire building for a day. And so, a half day. So those are the types of things that we're looking at. So where we say we're not really realizing a direct savings for 20 years because we're paying back our investment on our building, on our capital infrastructure here, that is money that's actually being saved from our general fund. I mean, it would be money that would have to be taken right out of general fund to fix, for instance, the roof. We have a problem with this roof also. So those types of things. So there is a savings. It's just that for 20 years, we're going to be paying back the investment into our infrastructure. 21, then that's all savings. And then when you're talking about a savings of somewhere around $700,000 or $1 million a year, whatever it ends up being, that is then all true savings from then on. Although by then we'll probably have more capital maintenance needs. But I think it's important that we clarify that.
One more question, Mr.
So I have one question, but before I do, as part of full disclosure, I've had a number of several conversations with Ashu at the CSAC meetings. He's one of the people who attends our annual conference, and as part of the vendors that are there, I've had several conversations with him. I wanted to indicate that I've had no specific discussion or regarding this particular item or information that was done by staff, not by me, so I've not had anything those kind of discussions with him. Just clarify that. One thing I noticed on the maps, Mr. Lees, that was there was some of the solar panels down near the public health building was on property that's near the river that has been, sort of something we're holding back maybe at some point for some kind of access to rivers. I just don't know if that's something that's been discussed or looked at or concerns.
We actually did discuss that and took a look, and there's a couple of concerns that were brought up. Is there going to be an impact on the river with the glass? And the answer to that is no, and we're far enough away. We have enough space down there to where we've centered that over close to the east end of the parking lot for the public health. There's plenty of room on the south end to still do whatever needs to be done. There is a private property owner on the north end of that also that does not impact them by any means.
Okay, great. Thank you. Supervisor Baugh.
Thank you, Chair Modi. And if memory serves me, I think you also introduced yourself to me at a prior meeting and made yourself known. So there was no discussion about this project or any other, but just wanted to disclose that as well. So I am definitely interested, Mr. Chairman. I'm wondering, I know we can continue discussion, but are you
He's got a
interested in the
presentation
motion?
to go
Oh, well, is
forward
there
with.
still more? Oh,
Yeah.
Never mind. We'll wait. I thought we were finished with the presentation.
We are finished with the presentation.
Okay.
Okay.
I'm just looking at 50.
There is a slide about schedule. I apologize. There was one more slide. I'm sorry.
But before you go to there, Supervisor Morgan had a question. This one.
Yeah, a question came up after I asked my other ones about rebates. I know the government gives out rebates, and so does the state, and that would we be eligible for rebates on installing solar?
So there was a rebate program by the government, by PUC, but those rebates were finished around 4 years ago. So there have been no rebates for solar projects since then. There are rebates by Reading Electric Utility for lighting and air conditioning, and we've had several discussions with them, and there are sizable rebates from them, several $100,000.
Okay. Thank you.
That'll come directly to the county.
Okay, yeah, that would help pay part of the bill.
Yes, sir.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, go ahead to your next slide.
Okay. So this is just a very preliminary schedule. If your board decides to, give us the go-ahead to develop this program further, we've done some development. We'll finish it by August, July, August timeframe, maybe in August, and hopefully we'll be back in front of the board in September for approval. And if the board approves the project, then I think it'll take us a year and a couple of months. By December 2020, we should be able to finish the entire project. That includes everything, the air conditioning, lighting, roofing of this building, and all the solar projects.
Okay, thank you.
That's huge.
I think Supervisor Baum raised the question, Mr. Lee, so where are you looking for us to go today?
So we're looking for a motion and a second to direct staff to go forward in doing the research to make sure we could bring back a final contract here within a couple months.
So we're not approving anything, just directing staff to do further research and bring back something to.
Right. We wanted to get an understanding. This is where we're headed. This is what it means, and we wanted to make sure the board was on board and didn't mind solar panels and things like that.
Okay, Supervisor Rickert.
Yes, I just wanted to make that motion.
Oh,
I'll second that motion.
Mr. Supervisor Baum.
Thank you. And so when we come back, the items that interested me, and I'm sure these will be on the list, would be the verified technology and established proof that the technology being installed has that long-term reliability, and then audited financial viability as well.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Okay. Any other discussion? We have a motion and a second. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. Thank you for your presentation, for the information. That takes us to item R6, which is a presentation of the Shasta County Fire Department Annual Report.
Well, good morning, Chairman Modi and members of the board. I'm Brett Gavea, Chief, Shasta County Fire Department. Well, this is my first year presenting the annual report, which we do annually. A couple things. The report traditionally has updated you on the goings-ons of the fire department for the past year, and there's a lot of statistics and data. I'll share some of those with you today. This year's report's 44 pages long, so I'll try to briefly... I'll try to briefly just hit some high points for you today and go from there. Again, for me, the main part of an annual report would be to update you on progress we've made in our master plan. As you may remember, the last master plan that was presented was in 2014, and so we are in the last year of that plan, of our 5-year plan. So I will share a few updates to that as well, as far as where we've some progress we've made. All right. So just to kind of highlight, we've kind of put together a little bit of a potpourri of data for you from this past year. And as I don't need to tell you, the Carr fire had a big impact on our year, but we also had significant storms this year. We've had a lot of activity in the county fire department over the past year. that I'd like to highlight some of those things for you. As you can see, in 2018, our Emergency Command Center that dispatches for Shasta County dispatched 13,722 incidents. That is a sharp increase every year from previous years as we see more calls for service. We talk about our number of volunteers, which has declined over the years for a lot of social reasons, really. But this year, we're setting steady at 172 volunteer firefighters in Shasta County Fire Department. The fire department is made up of both professional and volunteer firefighters, but as many of you know, 18 of our communities are serviced by volunteer fire companies. Of those companies, 3,500 volunteer Shasta County Fire Department calls for service. So volunteers responded to 3,500 of those 13,000 calls in 2018. Kind of some fun facts related to the car fire that you'll see up there that's really kind of surprising is the number of retardant that we ran out of our air base this last year. If you look at the bottom total there, we broke a lot of records. A single-day record of 166,672 gallons of retardant out of the Redding Air Attack Base in one day. 2,620,757 gallons of retardant delivered in 2018. The highest that we've ever delivered in a single year was 1.7 million prior to this last year. So we almost exceeded that record by 1 million gallons. So very busy year, and a lot of that retardant went to the car and the Delta and the Hertz and the camp fires that everybody's fully aware of. Some other significant things that you'll see up there is training. Our department participated in 20,000 hours of training in 2018. As part of the fire season, our volunteer staff is heavily leaned on. Company 71, there's a fact in there, which is the Montgomery Creek Volunteer Fire Company. A very committed company, as they all are. They covered our Hillcrest Cal Fire Station for 4 weeks during the car fire, which is pretty incredible. Company 33, Bella Vista, they participated in 17 strike team assignments in the fire season of 2018. So these are some high points I just wanted to point out today to all of you. And obviously the car fire footprint that I drove through yesterday, again, 229,651 acres. Pretty large footprint to get through. So during, one other piece I wanted to point out is during the creek, car, hat fires, which were all in that same period of time, call takers answered 10,360 calls to our information center. I do want to point out Tracy Neal and the probation department. They provided volunteer staff in our call center and really staffed our call center in its entirety for the 31 days that we were managing the car fire. So very thankful. As I've pointed out many a times in the past, this was a true community effort from all departments, from the community, from the business owners and the citizens on what we took on with the car fire and the mitigation of that. So I just wanted to throw that out there. Something that's not always talked about is our Fire Prevention and Law Enforcement Bureau that we run. Some pretty significant events that occurred with our law enforcement folks in prevention this year. They did respond and investigate the Vista structure fire in Bella Vista, which was a homicide, suicide, arson. The car fire, which is, as you could imagine, they assisted the Whiskeytown National Park with the investigation of the car fire, which was a pretty large undertaking for our folks. And then many of you remember the Cottonwood Arson Series that our folks, in conjunction with the Shasta Arson Task Force, conducted from July through mid-October. There's some data down there for you on fire causes in the year of 2018. Those are pretty steady as to what we see on a yearly basis. For note for us is arson, it's 7%. Undetermined is really about steady at 27%. That's about how many fires that we just cannot determine a cause of. So as I said earlier, one of the things that we try to focus on is, and I look through our master plan pretty often to see what we're accomplishing. In the 2014 master plan, there is a goal in there that is to establish a cooperative and cost-effective means to provide training to enhance the skills and qualifications of the firefighting staff. There's a number of objectives that fall under that, 3 to be exact, but 2 of those objectives we have met just this year in 2018. And one was to establish a formal agreement with Shasta College for the cooperative regional training facilities. If you haven't heard, I know many of you have, regarding SHIELD, which is a training consortium that we've put together, a public safety training consortium that is comprised of both law enforcement and fire agencies from Shasta, Trinity, and Tehama counties. Part of that was a facility use agreement for Shasta College facilities and all facilities really between those 3 counties, and that was successfully signed by all 9 entities this year and put into place. The other objective was to expand and improve the cooperative regional training facility equipment and infrastructure. Many of you attended the ribbon cutting at Shasta College at the new training facility, so we accomplished phase 1 of that is underway and moving forward. In SHIELD this year, we added a couple of new members. Reading Police Department and Shasta County Sheriff's Department have both recently became members of SHIELD, which is really where we're going as a complete public safety training consortia. And the significance of that is that we're bringing everybody together to do training together instead of individually. It makes it much more cost effective, and funding, grant opportunities, all those types of things are compounded when we're all doing these things together rather than individually going after the same dollars. So I think there's a lot of good things occurring with that. And then finally, for training, SHIELD was recognized as a formal nonprofit in 2018 as well. So our outlook for 2019, which is underway, we're halfway through it almost, which is amazing. As I spoke earlier, we are currently developing the Shasta County Fire Department 2019 Master Plan. We're going to continue to focus on recruitment and retention of our folks. As I said, volunteer numbers are down. It's really a demographic society type change that we've seen, and it's nationwide and not just in the fire service. So we're looking at new ways to attract volunteers and new benefits to folks that want to be in the fire service to be volunteers with Shasta County. We're going to pursue new cost-effective methods to increase the overall level of service. As I said, we heavily rely on volunteers. Those numbers decline, so we're going to continue to look for a lot of different avenues that we can increase our level of service, if you will. And then we're going to continue to improve our cooperative relationships, as I just spoke about SHIELD for training, but through our cooperative agreements so that we're being completely efficient in the level of services we're providing and helping each other. And also those shared relationships for funding opportunities that we can garner together. So this piece of my presentation is really some numbers on the fire marshal and protection and planning. And as you can see at the bottom of the page, we have a fire marshal and we have a fire inspector. And those 2 gentlemen complete all of these inspections themselves. So quite an undertaking in addition to plans reviews and everything else they do. But of significance here is what I came to you 2 weeks ago is about Senate Bill 1205 and our requirements to be within compliance with the fire safety inspections pursuant to Health and Safety Code sections 13146.2 and 13146.3 and the Shasta County Code section 8.08.040. So in this, you will see that we have school inspections, hotels, motel inspections, that it is my requirement to report to you. So I would ask the board to recognize this information in a resolution today.
Okay. Any questions of the chief? Okay. Supervisor Rickard.
Yes. A few comments, not so much questions, but first of all, I want to applaud your efforts on workforce development. I think that's a really key ingredient to enhance what we already have. I think it's greatly needed. We need to have people that are trained to work in forestry issues, firefighting issues. Also, again, I'll bring up the Shasta County Fire Safe Council. You and I had a conversation prior to this meeting, and I think that should be a priority. That we think it's a really good vehicle. Acts as an umbrella for funding for the various fire safe councils in Shasta County, and I think it'd be a good lead agency. So we will continue working on that. And then I just wanted to publicly thank in District 3, I was reading the list of your volunteers of 10 or more years. 34 out of the 51 volunteers were in District 3, and that speaks volumes of the commitment of the residents of District 3 and their devotion to their volunteer fire departments. And I'm bragging.
Yeah, now you're just. But you know what?
I can't help myself.
But you know what? It's okay.
It's
Because
okay.
it's a good thing.
Well, I just wanted to make it clear that I really appreciate their commitment. That's all.
Well, as you should, really.
Yeah.
So.
Oh, boy.
Wendy's out there, yay.
Supervisor Baugh.
Thank you, Chair Modi. Thank you, Chair Modi. I just wanted to take another opportunity to say thank you to you and to all Shasta County fire agencies for diligence and amazing results during the Carr fire. We know that you worked day and night, and we are very grateful. And on a more personal and a closer to home level for me and my district, to the Arson Task Force on the successful resolve of the Cottonwood arson fires. Man, an entire community literally took a breath when you successfully identified the arsonist. My sincere thanks.
Thank you.
Supervisor Morgan.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I just have a couple questions. First of all, well, thank you very much for a great presentation. And I know last year the Carr fires and those other fires up in my district were something else. Firefighters put their lives on the lines. It was amazing what they did and the amount of engines and the way the camp was set up in the city of Shasta Lake. I've never seen one of those before, but that was really amazing. Just a little small city in a city. And it was gratifying to see where our money goes for important things like this. But you touched on one thing about the volunteers and different benefits and that. Could you expand on that, please?
As far as the decline in volunteerism, is that what you were referring to?
For benefits or incentives.
Recruitment for volunteers?
Yes.
Well, something that Supervisor Rickard just pointed out, what is amazing is if you look at how many of our volunteers have over 25 years of service.
Right.
And I have a handful that have over 45 years of service. So when you look at other organizations sometimes, that's considered pretty significant. But we do have quite a number that range between 25 and 45 years of service. Those are our core volunteers. I used to say that core was about 60 of our 200 that we used to run. And they're still there, many of them, but they're starting to retire. And if you as many of you see at our appreciation dinner every year, we have retirements every year of folks that have over 45 years in with the county fire department as a volunteer. So society's not regrowing those type of people. We don't have those same community servants out there, and we're seeing that in volunteerism across the nation in all public service. So it's a challenge. And so what is the incentive? What we're focusing on is we're focusing on young people that want the fire service as a career and trying to incentivize volunteerism. And getting that hook in folks that being a volunteer is a big benefit on resumes, on job applications, and really trying to focus on that as we move into these new generations of folks and trying to figure out what's important to them and how to get them involved.
Okay, thank you.
Chief, I'll just add my thanks to you and your department as well. Obviously, the car fire was, mainly in my district, and I had the opportunity, particularly on that Thursday, to be with fire personnel out in really the firestorm, so to speak, and to see the dangers that they face, how difficult it can be when you can't see more than 20 feet in front of your vehicle trying to drive to help people. And then obviously as it continued on for the next few weeks, the continued efforts of so many people, obviously a lot of people from out of the area, but certainly all the people who serve Shasta County. So my deep thanks to all of them for their continued hard work. Please pass that along from all the board. And then I'll just wrap it up with one thing which I've talked to you briefly about. I've talked to Chief Heber before, to make another effort again to bring back an ordinance deal with those who do not clear their properties next to structures that endanger their neighbors. I think we need to make another effort to try to see if we can't come up with some kind of solution. I know I suspect there's a lot of interest on this board to do that. There has been in the past, and we need to, I think, reinvest ourselves in that effort. And I know Supervisor Rickert has talked to me specifically about it as well. So we look forward to working again to try to find some kind of solution on that. So,
and we have a little time on the 2014 master plan. That is an objective in that plan as well.
Great. So we do have one action item to take, and that's to adopt a resolution which acknowledges receipt of the report from the fire warden on their compliance with the fire safety inspection requirements pursuant to the Health and Safety Code.
I would like to so move that we accept it.
Second.
Been moved and seconded. Any other discussion? All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. Thank you, Chief. And now to our last item, which I'm sure a few people have waited very patiently for. This is a scheduled hearing. A court challenge to action taken by the Board of Supervisors on any project or decision may be limited only to those issues raised during the public hearing or in written correspondence delivered to the Board of Supervisors during or prior to the scheduled public hearing. This is an item from Resource Management. It's regarding a zone amendment. Mr. Salazar.
Good morning, Chairman, members of the board. I'm Leo Salazar. I'm a senior planner with the Shasta County Department of Resource Management Planning Division. And item R7 is a zone amendment as well as a use permit and reclamation plan. This project is in the Anderson area in District 2. The project site is an approximately 182-acre property on the northeast side of East Side Road, approximately 0.5 miles southeast of the intersection of Latona Road and East Side Road. The project site is currently in an industrial general plan area, and it's also zoned general industrial. The project would change the text of the general industrial zone district provisions of the Shasta County zoning plan to add wildlife habitat and or wildlife habitat enhancement or improvement projects as a permitted use, provided those projects are approved by state and federal wildlife agencies or as approved for mine reclamation, which is the case in this project. As I stated earlier, there's a use permit and reclamation plan as part of this project. It would allow a sand and gravel mining operation. At the conclusion of those operations, the area would then that was disturbed by mining would be reclaimed. And that mining operation would take place on approximately 100 acres of the project site. It is estimated that the proposed gravel mining operations would be completed in 20 years, or about 2039, and they would extract approximately 360,000 tons annually for an approximate total of 6 million tons over the life of the project. Areas disturbed by mining would be reclaimed primarily as open water and terrestrial wildlife habitat. but there would also be the option to return some of it to agricultural land, which is the current use of the property. And that reclamation would take place concurrent with and or upon completion of the mining operations. So on April 26th of 2019, the Planning Commission continued the public hearing for this project, and they considered the applicant's proposal along with the California Environmental Quality Act initial study and mitigated negative declaration prepared for the project. It was presented to the Planning Commission that the zone amendment would streamline state and or federally approved habitat restoration projects on lands in the General Industrial Zone District, and would also provide an additional end-use option for mining projects located in the General Industrial Zone. As you may know, there are areas of the county near the Sacramento River and Clear Creek that are some of the primary general industrial corridors in the county, so this would just provide additional opportunities along those corridors. And this change would be consistent with the Shasta County General Plan, which seeks to protect and enhance significant wildlife, fish, and vegetation resources while balancing the need to manage mineral extraction. It was also presented that while the project site has consistently been used for agriculture and is identified as important farmland, the project would be appropriately located in a commercial industrial corridor on industrially zoned land and in the vicinity of a number of other heavy industrial uses. The reclamation plan for the mining operations has been reviewed by the Division of Mines and Geology, Mine Land and Reclamation Program, which is part of the state agency that we work in cooperation with on reclaiming mine sites throughout the county. And that agency's recommendations have been incorporated into the conditions of approval for the project. The recommended conditions of approval would also ensure that the project is consistent with Shasta County development standards and the objectives, policies, and standards of the Shasta County General Plan and Zoning Plan. Finally, it was presented to the Planning Commission that based on the California Environmental Quality Act initial study, the proposed mitigated negative declaration would include several measures to mitigate potentially significant impacts of the project to a less than significant level, including but not limited to impacts related to the loss of agricultural land, potential air emissions from the project, impacts on biological resources and water quality, noise, and transportation. And in terms of transportation, including a measure that would reduce the project's use of the State Highway 273 Latona Road at grade railroad crossing, which is currently unsignalized. Based on its consideration of the project, the Planning Commission recommended that the Board of Supervisors hold a public hearing on the project, adopt an environmental determination of a mitigated negative declaration, introduce, waive the reading of, and enact the zone amendment, and adopt the recommended findings and approve the reclamation plan and use permit. That ends my presentation. If you have any questions.
Thank you, Mr. Salazar. Any questions of staff before I open the public hearing? Seeing none. Open the public hearing. Anybody wish to speak to this item?
Mr. Chairman, members of the board, my name is Wendy Johnston with Vestra Resources. We represented the proponent of the project on this development of the plan and reclamation plan and CEQA document. I'm mostly here to answer any questions that you might have. The proponent appreciates your consideration of the project.
Supervisor Rickert.
Yes, Wendy, I just had one quick question. When Leo referred to it as farmland, there's no farmland. Is it primarily grazing, isn't it? In that,
it actually is used for haying pasture. Hoy actually hays it.
Oh, he hays it. Okay, all right. I was just curious. Okay.
Currently, Sierra Pacific Industries applies their cogeneration ash on the facility. It's a land application area currently.
Okay, thanks.
Any other questions? Thank you, Ms. Johnston, for being here and for waiting so patiently. Anybody else wish to speak? Seeing none, we'll close the public hearing, bring it back to the board.
I'll move approval.
I'll second.
And I assume that would be approval of items 3, 4, and 5.
Staff's recommendations, thanks.
Thank you. In a second. Those are there?
Yes.
Any other questions? All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion passes. And we are at the end of our agenda. We are adjourned.